Today, you are going to get a front row seat to the incredible Springbok career of Andre Pretorius. Andre, welcome to Front Row Rugby.
Thank you very much, Peter. Good to be on.
It's nice to have you here. Before we begin our conversation, we're going to take a look at the trivia question for this week. In 2016, Alistair Coetzee became Springbok coach. Who did he appoint as his first captain? Now, if you know the answer to the question, you can put it in the comment section down below. We'll also find out if Andre knows the answer to the question, but we'll do that at the end of our conversation. Andre, I would like to begin in 2002. Tell me, what did it feel like when you were making your debut against Wales?
It was kind of bittersweet, Peter. It's something that I've always wanted, and obviously every rugby player and small boy, one of their dreams is to become a Springbok. But my father passed away in the year before that. And luckily, he got to see me become a 7th Springbok, but he never saw me become a Springbok in 15s. But nevertheless, it was a really special feeling, and to be able to share that with the people that supported you to get you there was great.
From there, we moved on to the Tri-Nations, and even though we lost many of those matches, we actually performed quite well. And actually, I think a lot of people thought that there were a lot of encouraging signs. How far off the pace do you think we were in comparison to the Wallabies and the All Blacks at that stage?
It was kind of mixed feelings with regards to that. Our tour didn't go well at all. It was a new Springbok management, and the pre-sea or the mid-year tours went really well, but as soon as the Tri-Nation started, we could kind of see that we weren't at the same level. And the tours we battled, but the home games, we narrowly lost the one in Durban, the Piet Van Zyl incident one, and then against Australia in Johannesburg, where Werner scored that amazing try and then kicked the goal to win the game. So I think, as always, Jake used to say, hoekom moet ek altyd die boere die moeder maak voordat hulle kwaad raak? And that's exactly what happened. Is everybody was writing us off, and as always, Springboks with their backs to the wall came out firing.
Hey, if you're enjoying this video, why not hit the like button?
I want to touch on that Piet Van Zyl moment. How much of a distraction was that to you guys in that moment?
Distraction. I think at that stage it could have been quite essential for us, because we had the ascendancy, we were playing well, and then obviously this thing happened. And the other thing is we weren't been playing good rugby, and then it was kind of an embarrassment on the field in terms of what we try to showcase. So taking that into regard afterwards, it wasn't a good picture for South African rugby. I know Piet is a really, really staunch and avid and committed, passionate Springbok supporter, but on the day, I think we could have done without it.
And then the following week, as you mentioned, Werner scored that memorable try and we beat the Wallabies. I think it was the final move of the match, actually. It might even have hit the 80-minute mark by the time Werner scored that try. Talk to me about the happiness of that moment.
Yeah, well, again, bittersweet. I withdrew the night before the test. Brent Russell came in at 10, played an amazing game. He scored a phenomenal try that I don't think a lot of players in World Rugby would have scored. Came out, I think George Smith was still hanging on to him, and he just broke through and scored. But that final move was typical Werner Greef. He liked to run that negative power line, broke through forward tackles, and then scored in his famous dive. So and Werner wasn't known for kicking goals. Werner was known for being tough, making good decisions, being your solid player on the field. And he stepped up with a BMT. He's also an avid golfer. So he showed the BMT and put it over.
Unfortunately, after that, we went on a tour to Europe, the end of 2002, and I think it's fair to say that it was a disastrous tour, especially in terms of results. How frustrating was that for you?
Very. I think we had high hopes. There's a lot of young players that came in. It was my first year with the Springboks, so I was also young, but the players that came in, like John de Villiers' first tour, you wanted to make it special for them, and it was everything but. Wearing a Springbok jersey is always special, and I think the 53-3 loss against England at the end of that tour just epitomized what we were going through at that stage.
Talking about that 53-3 defeat to the English, how much of a low point was that for you in terms of your Springbok career?
Very. And as luck would have it, Corne Kriegel accidentally knocked me out on a tackle on Matt Dawson. So luckily I can't remember a big part of that test, but I know what the essence was. I know at one stage Butch James had to step behind Dion Carstens on our goal line because obviously Janus Labuschagne got sent off, and there we also realised why the forwards have got the single figures on their name and the backside at the back, because I know at one stage Butch was picking up Dion Carstens' leg when Dion was trying to set the scrum for us. So it was a bad day for us, and what's quite remarkable is that we had a really good week. We had a really good training week. We were really focused, but the English at that stage, they were just on another level.
Yeah, they were less than a year away from winning the World Cup. I was actually going to bring up that punch from Corne on you, so thank you for bringing it up first. Let's move into 2003. I think you only played 2 test matches, and one of them was actually off the bench in 2003. Was that injury related, or was it just a case of Rudolf Straeuli preferring Louis Kuhn and Derek Hougaard at that stage?
A lot of it was injury related, and then it was return to play that was preventing me from coming back. Every time I got back close to playing again, there'd be a recurrence of an injury. So it was a lot injury related, but I also think I don't think they were quite sure of the makeup of the team, so they were experimenting as well.
Did you attend Kamp Staaldraad?
I didn't. I had to do my knee, and then the day before the announcement of the Springbok squad for the World Cup, Rudolf called me in and he said he wasn't going to select me because the guys were going on a camp, and the guys at the camp needed to be able to do everything. So I didn't attend.
I think we can say that you literally dodged a bullet in that instance. Tell me, Andre, what was your overall opinion of Rudolf Straeuli as a coach?
Rudolf was remarkable in the sense that he had good connections with the players. He was a player's player when he played, and he was a player's coach when he coached. He had a dictatorial sense to him, which I think at some stage, overtook him with people that was on his side, and I think he lent his ears out a bit too much at one stage, and he lost his sense of connection with the players, and that's why I think he got it wrong.
And then the next time that you played for the Springboks was in 2006. And I think possibly the moment that defines you maybe as a Springbok, certainly in the eyes of the fans, we're in Rustenburg. It's a kick that you're lining up against the All Blacks. You have to put it over in order for us to win. Talk to me about that moment.
Yeah, the All Blacks were going to beat our record for the most consecutive wins. The test before that we lost quite badly at Loftus. And again, everybody was kind of putting this one away as a loss even before we ran onto the field. And like we said earlier, Springboks with their backs to the wall. We had nothing to lose. I have to add that we had nothing to lose. So we came out, started really well, and then with a 15-minute mark, we had a sniff that we think we can win this test. And at the end, there was a rolling maul, and Rudolf Straeuli came on the side, got the penalty, and John Smith still picked the ball up and walking across to me and said, "Rather you than me, buddy." And luckily it went over.
How nervous were you in that moment?
To be honest, I was too tired to be nervous, and all I could think was that this is what we've been working for, and this could be a game changer for us. So, it's difficult to say you didn't hear the crowd. The crowd on the day was phenomenal, but the nerves was definitely there.
So how confident were you then at the end of 2006 that you might be the starting fly half at the World Cup?
I wasn't at all. I think I battled too long with my hamstring, and I was actually thinking it might be a reason for me not going, because it just kept on recurring. And I was very fortunate that my one sponsor, Adidas, flew me over to Germany they got me in touch with one of the best doctors in the world, Dr. Mila Wolford, best sport physicians, and he treated my back for 5 days in a row with injections and manipulation, and that in the end made the difference for me to go.
And speaking of the World Cup in France in 2007, you started against Tonga, and as it turns out, that match was not the best performance that we've seen from the Springboks. What happened that day?
I think it's a typical competition where, every loss means something. You can't lose and expect. At that stage, nobody that's lost a pool game has won the World Cup. Rassie and his boys turned that stats on its head. But yeah, the pressure was there, and the Island boys, when they get up and they get a sniff of blood, then they really come at you. On the day, my boot was also left in the change room. I don't think I could have hit water if I fell out of a boat, so that didn't help. Couldn't keep the pressure on them, and they just kept coming at us. And at one stage, there was a kick forward, and if that stayed in, I think we would have lost that game. And that's the margins in international rugby, and that's why mindset comes into it, because all it was is, I think they were a bit better prepared mentally than we were in terms of what to expect. We were expecting them to go away if we started putting pressure on them, and they just never went away.
Andre, at that World Cup, the moment that Australia and New Zealand were eliminated in the quarterfinals, I think that there was a sense, certainly from the fans, that the World Cup was now ours to lose. Did you guys have that same feeling in the camp?
Yeah, for sure. We when after the second loss, big team out, the boys went, right, this is the one. And if you go and look at it, the game against Fiji was also a close one, because now we had a lot more to lose, because there was something really great at the end of this tournament. So we definitely had that, and we had a refocus session. Actually, we sat down and said, listen, with them out doesn't mean we just get it. It just means that we've got other teams that we need to beat.
So how disappointed were you not to get game time in the Rugby World Cup final that year?
I think if we'd lost, it would have been worse. But because we won, it didn't really matter, and that's the thing about that squad. There's a lot of guys that didn't get a lot of game time, but everybody was bought into what Helen Gericke called the main thing, and the main thing stayed the main thing.
Now, even though you didn't play in the final, tell me, what does it feel like when the referee blows the final whistle and you are a rugby world champion?
At the time, I didn't know what it meant, to be quite honest. It felt like you've won a competition, but afterwards, when we came back into South Africa, we did the bus tours and spoke to people, and I'd be sitting with my mates, and they'd go, you're a world champion now. And then it started to sink in, and how wonderful it is that you could achieve something so big with so many great people.
I was actually on the bus parade in Cape Town that year, and yes, as you say, it really was phenomenal, a wonderful experience. Andre, I asked you earlier for your opinion on Rudolf Straeuli as a coach. Now I'd like to hear from you what your thoughts are on Jake White as a coach.
I think he's definitely one of the best that I've worked with in so many different facets. He can be a player's coach. Technically, he's really sound. He's not afraid to get people around him that knows more than he does. He definitely knows how to get a squad together. If you look at where he's been in terms of teams that were battling Brumbies, Sharks, etc., you'll get them at least to a semi-final, where they were maybe in the previous year they didn't even make a playoff. So he's a phenomenal coach, and he keeps showing it.
There's something else I'd like to talk to you about, Andre. By the time that you appeared on the scene, almost every kicker certainly in international rugby, was using the kicking tee, but you were still using the sand. Talk to me about that.
It's just a personal preference. I stopped using sand because it became too much of an effort to train. When you get your captain's runs and you speak to the groundskeeper and you say, listen, we need 2 buckets of sand to kick, that first reaction is always priceless. Are you serious? You want sand? And then they either have dry sand or the wrong sand or not enough sand. So that's why I stopped kicking. But if I had to say my personal preferences would still be sand. It gives me a feeling of kicking through the ball. If you get it wrong, the big plastic tees, once you hit it, feels like you've kicked one of these hockey balls. So it was a personal preference, and it just felt like it gave you freedom with your foot.
So who was your toughest opponent?
It's normally the centers, because the centers and the flankers, because they kind of look for the 10s to run over them. But I think a guy like Ma Nonu was a tough, really a tough guy to play against. Sterling Mortlock, Matt Giteau, those are really, really good international players that could change a game in an instant with some brilliance and X factor. But I think Ma Nonu, because he had the ability to beat you with pace, he'd run over you, or he could beat you with great feet. He's a really, really good player.
Andre,
And Buckies.
Of course. Andre, I ask this of all of my guests. Can you share with us a funny or a memorable moment from your time with the Springboks?
Well, it probably would include Jock Fourie, as the two of us were always roommates and getting up to stuff together. But this particular one was myself and Skalk Burger in Dunedin when we played table tennis. And on the evening, Scala's quite a baller, but I had his number on the table tennis. And every time he had a whitewash, he had to run outside in his underwear and then come back. So people were getting quite familiar with Scala in his underwear on that one particular evening, and it was in winter, so it was dreadful for Scala. But I think it was more so because he had lost the table tennis to me.
That's a great story, Andre. Tell me, I mean, I know the answer to this, but our viewers may not necessarily know. What are you up to these days?
I've just finished last year, October. I finished about a 6-year stint with NW University in Potchefstroom and the Leopards Rugby Union. And I moved my family over to Japan. We're living in Hino, Takara Fudo at this moment, and I'm coaching, doing the defense of the Hino Red Dolphins.
So do you speak any Japanese?
It's just enough to get my order completely wrong, and sometimes get the taxi to drop me off about 5 blocks from my house. But other than that, it's not too bad. They try and make it an effort to understand the broken Japanese.
That's great. All right, Andre, let's take a look at our trivia question again then from earlier. In 2016, Alistair Coetzee became Springbok coach. Who did he appoint as his first captain? Andre, do you know the answer?
I'll take a guess. I'm not sure if it was Alistair, but I know Adrian Strauss was a captain at one stage.
That is exactly right. Congratulations. Andre, I want to tell you something. I think I've been running the trivia question for about 26 episodes now, and you are probably only the 5th guy to get the answer right. So congratulations. And on that note, let me say thank you very, very much for being available today, Andre. It really was a pleasure. And I hope that in the future we can have you on again.
But it's awesome. I really like your content, and look forward to seeing the rest of the Springbok boys have a chat to you.
Last time on Front Row Rugby, I had Springbok prop Keith Andrews on the show. You can go and have a look at that. It's appearing on your screen right now. Next time, 1995 Rugby World Cup champion Joel Stransky will be my guest.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed that video, why not tackle the like button? You can also subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any content from Front Row Rugby. See you next time.